Hi, I'm Sam J. Rankin. On this channel, we talk about film theory, film reviews, and also filmmaking. Sometimes I am a writer and director, and I thought I'd talk about a film that I helped write and direct with a great group of people called Leave a Message. It's in the description below, so if you like, click that link and come back and we'll talk about why we made this film, what we were trying to achieve, and maybe some tips about how to make something short, simple, and easy.
Hey Mum, how are you? I'm standing at the lookout. It's beautiful as always. Duncan picked me up at 7 wearing this huge suit. Must have been Uncle Ian's. Just a terrific entrance, really.
So just in this little first section, just to give some brief notes on the outline, we're filming on an ARRI Alexa camera, which is a professional cinema camera provided by the very generous Vanessa, who was the DOP, working alongside Maddie, her camera assistant. And it's a voicemail message. All the audio is been done in post, and some great, I think, ADR was performed here as well towards the end of the scene. This little shot here, you can see this blurry outline. Vanessa had these cool filters that she was mucking around with, and we were talking about sort of creating a dreamlike, nostalgic quality, and she put it on this shot here. A lot of the scenes are in 100 frames, or I think 120 frames per second, and I wanted to create sort of a dreamy, otherworld, nostalgic feeling of the past and the present and the future sort of all colliding. I think it's a really, really strong opening. Let's keep going.
It was awkward at first, not gonna lie. Then he started talking, just an avalanche of jabbering. It was a great distraction, to be honest.
So I used to be a location scout, on-set locations person as well for film, TVs and commercials for about 6 years. So I knew a few areas outside of Melbourne that would be great. And because we'd been cooped up during the pandemic, I thought, let's make a little road trip movie and drive out and have a nice time. So this was all filmed on the way to the location. That's sort of two little tips in making stuff that's quick and easy and simple and cheap is A, think of good locations because that will raise your short film, maybe prioritize that over a lot of other things. And B, plan your day accordingly. So all of the stuff, the talking in the backseat of the car, driving through the small town were things that we could capture along the way to other locations.
He told me Uncle Ian had cancer. It was in Spain, I think. I'm assuming it was a shit right up to the end of it all. I feel horrible now, but just getting fed up with Duncan's weirdness and slowly drifting away from him. He never stood a chance, did he?
This is probably one of my favourite sections I think I've made, to be honest. I had a very strong idea of what it would look like, the POV of M, looking there at Dustin, and M's POV sort of being 100 frames per second, I think works really well in this section. We can see sort of the guilt, and again, she's thinking about the past of how she treated Dustin as a cousin, the sort of weirdo, and how she wasn't around to, console him when his father passed away. And it's such a really lovely moment by both performers. Andy did a great job of being sort of frustrated and angry at this coffin. And it's, I think, a really nice moment.
We also went down to the lake. Remember that time we all went on Boxing Day, I think it was? I dropped Dad's phone in the water. And
I think coverage and editing of this was really fun and free-wielding because I didn't have to think about dialogue and think about continuity, really. So I think some things you should try and make easy for yourself, and this was definitely really nice because I could just think of shots with my DOP and think about performances and sort of make things up, but there's some really nice moments captured here. And then this sort of cross-dissolve, section of sitting over each other, just something different. I think we talked again before, what did we want to do and what kind of things do we want to highlight? And I think being a bit more experimental or trying things in a different way, and this sort of layering over the top was just something I thought would look cool. And I think it's a pretty cool effect.
You remembered every detail when we spoke. But there's also a reason I left so many messages, right? Because I fucked off, sorry.
And just end of the day here, this shot looking at. We actually came back on the second day. We were going to try and film all of this in one day. But when we came to the top of this mountain, this shot here, it was all fog. The whole thing was covered in fog. The weather just turned in the afternoon and a thick fog set in, and we had to come back on a nicer, warmer, clearer day.
I left everything behind and didn't stop to see that you were there too. And I missed so many things. So here it is. Another message instead of the real thing. Another message to say,
This mailbox is full and cannot accept any messages at this time.
And this is sort of the huge bittersweet moment. This was sort of the impetus for this short film. Someone had mentioned a while before this that they had a loved one who passed away and that their voicemail, they listened to their voicemail all the time, just to hear their voice and how comforting but also weird and disorientating it was. And then I heard, voicemails can just fill up and you can't, if they're not being renewed by the person, then they can no longer be listened to. And I thought that would be a brutal thing to happen halfway through leaving a message. She's doing another one of these long rambling messages, something that she used to do because she was away all the time. She feels guilty that she might not have been there towards the end. And then this message comes in, which is that little voice message was my lovely wife. Nice little cameo there, Nat. And this section, look, I think I probably cribbed a bit from Call Me By Your Name. I think it's a really strong ending to that film. Just sitting with his Timothée Chalamet's grief, unflinching. It really struck with me, and cutting the music out and just having all of this with M was, I think, the right decision, and she just did a great job. I think an actor like this could go really overboard, could be really, really big emotions, but it's just quietly devastating, and it reads all over M's face. So, yeah, I'm really happy with the ending and the whole film. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you like this stuff, and I'll see you next time.